Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. This week we bring you a special programme examining the 70th anniversary of Israeli statehood, which is viewed as a catastrophe by Palestinians. We'll take a look back at the events leading up to Nakba Day and ask how the events perceived in Israel. We'll also speak to Élie Barnavi, an Israeli historian and diplomat. But first, on May 14th, Israel will mark the 70th anniversary of its independence. The next day, Palestinians will mark Nakba Day, which means catastrophe in Arabic and commemorates the expulsion of over 700,000 Palestinians from their home. Well, for more on this, France 24's Catherine Viette reports.
May 14th, 1948. The British mandate in Palestine is about to expire. David Ben-Gurion proclaims the birth of the State of Israel. The next day, the 5 neighboring Arab countries declare war.
The city of Haifa and its harbor become the center of bitter conflict as the new Jewish state is born in the tense atmosphere of civil war.
During the Arab-Israeli War of 1948, more than 700,000 Palestinians are forced into exile. It's the Nakba, which means catastrophe in Arabic.
Haganah forces seek out every Arab, and barricades are set up to screen those who had not already fled the city. Everyone is searched.
The Haganah, a paramilitary organization, forms the core of Israeli forces and is responsible for expelling Palestinians. Their lands and houses are seized. Most flee to Gaza, Jordan, Lebanon, or Syria. On December 11, 1948, the United Nations adopts a resolution for the right of return for these Palestinian refugees, but Israel has never given its permission. 70 years later, Ibrahim Mahmoud still lives in the Jalazon camp north of Ramallah. He was 17 when he had to leave his native village, which is now in Israeli territory.
We went to the mountains and we spent 4 or 5 nights there. People were lost, like sheep without a shepherd. I promise before God that we will go home. We have to go home.
Every May 14th, the Israelis celebrate the creation of their state, while the following day, Palestinian refugees and their children commemorate the Nakba. They've never abandoned their hope of returning to their village.
One day, we'll come back to our land and we'll have rights again. We'll continue to resist until we get it all back.
This Palestinian family holds on tightly to that precious symbol of their right to return, the key to the house they were forced to abandon 70 years ago.
Élie Barnavi is an Israeli historian, diplomat and writer. He was also the Israeli ambassador to France between 2000 and 2002. Mr. Barnavi, welcome. We saw in that report how Palestinians view the Nakba. Obviously, with what's going on in Gaza at the moment, it's still very fresh in their minds.
Yes, it has been willingly cultivated, this the myth of return, which is part of the Palestinian ethos, and which is, of course, a tragic illusion. They will not be returned, because the return of the Palestinian refugees means simply the erasement of the state of Israel, and this nobody will accept it. Of course, the solution is the Palestinian state alongside Israel. This is the reasonable solution, but in this region, reason is not necessarily the sovereign.
How is the Nakba perceived in Israel? I mean, is it recognised there?
Well, there are people who do recognize that something like this happened. Myself, I think that, yes, there was a catastrophe, whatever the reason, whoever the responsible. After all, if there were had been war, there wouldn't have been a problem of refugees. But the Nakba is a reality, a historical reality. And people like me are willing to recognize and to admit publicly in order to bring some kind of appeasement, of memory and reconciliation. But most of the people are not prepared, and certainly not the government. There is a kind of refusal to to cope with this reality.
Talk us through some of the reasons why those who are not willing to recognise it, the Nakba, won't go ahead and do so.
Because of the fear, the prevailing feeling among my compatriots is that admitting the reality, the historic reality of the Nakba, is somehow reducing or harming the historical legitimacy of the Jewish endeavor in Palestine. So that there is a kind of zero-sum game, of historical zero-sum game, which is, of course, totally unhealthy.
Inside Israel, the debate on whether Palestinian refugees displaced between 1947 and 1949 should be allowed to return home continues. Our team on the ground sent us this next report, which provides some insight into the starkly contrasting views on the issue.
On the Tel Aviv beachfront, there's a museum incorporating the ruins of a Palestinian building. The dedication says, "In memory of the liberators of the city." Eitan Bronstein works for an NGO which helps Israelis to learn Palestinian history.
Bonjour. Instead of saying that they conquered, they liberated Jaffa. So they liberated, of course, from the Arabs, like they took it from the Arabs, and now they liberated for the Jews.
He claims this rewrites history, since before Israel's creation, this was the Arab district of Al-Manshia. Most of the homes here were destroyed
Explosions
during the 1948 war.
We have so many testimonies of people that entered the house and saw it like it was, people left there sometimes few weeks before, sometimes few months before, but there were houses of people, it's clear. They told us on video, he told us, my parents were asked to enter here because the authorities told them that if you enter in these houses, then the Palestinians will not be able to return.
The right of return is one of the main Palestinian demands, but it's unacceptable to most Israelis. In the Centre for the Heritage of the Jews of Egypt, Bronstein meets Shmuel Trigano. He makes the point that Jews living in Arab countries were also expelled from there.
Here, for instance, we have a scale model of the Ben Ezra synagogue in Cairo.
On the issue of the right of return, the tone gets heated.
The fact that there have been Palestinian refugees, nobody questions that. But do they remain refugees from father to son? I don't think so.
For me, it's a weird argument because, in fact, the ones that keep the refugee situation of the Palestinians is Israel. Israel is not allowing them to return. Israel expelled them in the
because they want to destruct him, They want to destruct Israel, the state of Israel. That's the question.
No. They want to return
hear
home.
what the Hamas is saying.
No. They want to return home. They want to return home.
Okay.
According to the United Nations, there are more than 4 million Palestinians eligible to return. That worries Shmuel Trigano.
It would be a radical demographic change that would transform the state of Israel's very nature. There are no examples of democracy within the Arabo-Muslim world. The simple observation of the political situations in Israel's neighboring countries is enough for us to reject that idea. This would be a national suicide.
It's a good example for the impossibility of any future of peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
The two men part in deep disagreement, a reflection of Israeli society. According to a recent poll, only 20% of Israelis would support some Palestinians returning here, and only those who agree to live in peace.
Well, Mr. Barnavi, let's come back to you. We saw in that report two diametrically opposed views on the issue. How deeply does this weigh on Israel's collective conscience?
Well, the whole debate is totally theoretical and absurd. One has to understand that there will never be a return of the refugees simply because nobody wants it. It means simply the destruction of the state of Israel. It is as clear as that. In the advent of a Palestinian state, there will be a kind of law of return, as you have here in Israel, for the Palestinians wishing to go to their states. That's the reasonable thing to expect.
The activist in that report criticised a rewriting of history. How much of that is an issue?
It is an issue because history touches memory, and memory is something very, very raw here. It's Jews and Arabs alike. So we have an historiography which is quite robust, actually, and people who do quite a good job. The opening of the archives of the State of Israel, partly due to a kind of natural reaction to the old generation of historians. Revisionism, it's the bread and butter of the historian. So yes, there has been a debate, a historian debate, and it's still going on. But one shouldn't caricature the old school, so to speak. You can find quite an honest assessment of what happened before here, also in the so-called old historians. But all in all, there has been a rebranding of the history of the conflict within the Israeli historiography, which all in all, despite some excesses, was I think a good thing.
Mr. Barnavi, thank you very much for speaking to France 24 today. Well, you're up to date for this week, but if you do want to see more of the programme, you can log on to our website at france24.com. You can also get in touch via our Facebook page, Middle East Matters France 24. In addition, you can always send us a tweet.